And welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We've got quite a bit to get into today. We've got a bit more updates regarding Daniel Farke. So we'll talk a bit about that and about sort of his current situation. Because a few bits I missed off yesterday that I probably should have said that I'm now going to say. There's also, which I want to talk about as well, there's this, as you can see in the title. Now, I would not normally call a video an awful stat, because that's a bit boring. But you haven't seen this stat yet, people. You have not seen this stat. This away stat that we have got this moment in time is absolutely horrendous. I shared it on Twitter if anyone follows the Twitter account. We do have a Leeds Lens Twitter, so definitely follow that if you don't already. But we need to get into this because our second half performances are absolutely abysmal according to the statistic. So I think you'll all like the look of that. And there's also going to talk about the reasons why we think this sort of statistic is looking so bad in the second halves and what's causing second half performances. Is it Daniel Farke's in-game tactics? Is it fitness? There's loads to talk about regarding it. So talk a bit about that. We're also as well going to talk a bit about the relegation battle because I think there was quite an update regarding the relegation battle. Some teams getting more involved in the relegation battle and some teams getting away from the relegation battle. I look at Forest at this moment in time as an example and I go, are they really going to be involved in the relegation battle? I never thought they would be. And with that 3-0 win away at Liverpool, now back-to-back wins, obviously beating us the week before as well, are they really going to be involved in the relegation battle as well? So as this relegation battle sort of tightened now, obviously Leeds United have obviously fallen into the relegation battle as well. But obviously, like always, get your comments in, get liking, get subscribing if you can as well. And I've got it in at the start of the video because it's what someone wanted to do. Basically, when I don't mention it, I just get way less likes and way less subscribers from each thing. So it is annoying, but if you could like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. And if you are watching afterwards, there's this hype button. If you could do that as well, that would be fantastic. But yeah, let's start. Should I say where we start, actually? What did I do? We'll start with this statistic because this statistic is absolutely horrendous. So anyone that doesn't know, I shared this on Twitter today. Leeds United away from in the second halves so far this season have actually only won one second half all year. But worse than that, they've actually only scored 2 goals in a second half all season. And they come with a Nemecha penalty against Everton, which some could argue wasn't a penalty. I still think it was a penalty. I've seen people debating on Twitter if it was or it wasn't. Literally, the head of the PGMOL came out and said it definitely was a penalty. So, you know, I think it was. Tchaikovsky had the ball. I think it was a penalty. But that's something to mention. And obviously, the other goal was against Bournemouth in a game I thought was one of our best home performances. Obviously, it was that Sean Longstaff shot that went in off the was it off the post or the crossbar? I think it was off the post, wasn't it? And flew into the back of the net. Well, besides that, we haven't scored an away goal. And I think when we're looking at sort of Daniel Farke and the conversation that's going around it, I think this has to be linked. This has to be linked. Everyone talks about, and I've said on this channel, me and Daniel Farke are sort of not. I'm probably not as angry with Daniel Farke as a lot of them. I'm still haven't really made a video saying I'm Daniel Farke out yet. I don't think I'm probably quite at that stage yet for a number of factors, which we've talked about in enough detail. I'm not going to go into that. But one thing I've always said on this channel, and one thing you guys have always said, and we've said it for years, by the way. I know we haven't been doing this channel for years. What I mean by that is in people's personal lives and stuff. We've been saying this for years. Daniel Farke's in-game management is abysmal. It always has been. His substitutions, he doesn't know how to change a game. All his substitutions are, for me, all look pre-planned. Or it's throwing a load of defenders at the end if we need to try keep a lead, or throwing a load of attackers we try to win a game. There is no tactical tweaks ever. And I think this shows in these statistics. I think one of the main reasons why this season we've only won one performance away from home, and not away from home, second half performance is because of this statistic, is because of Daniel Farke's in-game management. This has got to be a reason for this being the case, surely. They've got to go hand in hand, and I think they do go hand in hand. And actually, even if you look back to the game we did win, that Everton game in the second half, we won 1-0. I think we could not even an argument. We were miles better in the first half in that game than we were in the second half. So I look back at them fixtures and I go, is there any game there where we were actually better in the second half than the first half, where Daniel Farke has managed to change the game and we've been a much better team in the second half? I genuinely don't think there has been. I genuinely don't think there has been. And that is concerning. And again, that shows, that clearly shows to me that what happens is we get to half-time, the other manager's the tactical tweak, like we saw at the weekend where he brought on Marlon, he brought on Maatsen. Leeds United can't deal with it. Daniel Farke doesn't know how to adapt. And then within 30 seconds, Marlon's put a ball across and Rodgers has made it 1-1. And then they're back in the game. And this is just, that the weekend is a prime example. 1-0 at half-time, doing well. His original tactical plan working. Then Unai Emery changes it. and it all goes wrong. And I think this has been a sign all season. I think it's gone in literally every single game. As you said, as I said earlier, we haven't had a better second half performance than we've had a first half performance. And that is absolutely abysmal, but it goes to show what everybody's been saying for the longest time. As I said, people go, why are you not Daniel Farke out with this? And it's just because of the fixtures coming up. But stuff like this has got to push you towards it. And when we talk about in-game management, obviously we talk about tactical tweaks. But as I talk about, the substitutions that Daniel Farke does are awful. They really, really are bad. Like, all he's got in the bank, in my personal opinion, is 70th minute subs, which is pre-game planned that, Nemecha might be tired on the 70th, so let's swap him for Calvert-Lewin. Maybe Aronson's tired on the 70th, so let's swap him for Dan James. That is about it. And then what you see is in the 85th or 80 to 85th minute, let's throw on Pro, let's throw on 2 strikers, and let's just go for it and see what happens. Or alternatively, on the reverse side, you see the Bournemouth game, for example, where he throws all the defenders on. We've got no attackers at all on the pitch, basically. We've got Tanaka playing right wing to be even more defensive. And then, of course, we end up conceding a goal. So this is the fundamental problem. But the other thing that I don't think, they're obvious. Everyone knows that when you're going to talk about second half, you're going to talk about tactical tweaks and you're going to talk about substitutions. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned enough on this, and we mentioned it a few times on this channel, but I haven't seen it enough probably in the Leeds United fan base, is the fitness levels of this team. The fitness levels of this team are, for me, quite clearly an issue. I didn't even realise this happened when we talked about it after in the closing whistle. But I realised today that even Unai Emery said in the press conference, in his press conference after the game, that Leeds United tied on the 55th minute. And anyone that was in the ground, he's absolutely right. We did. And I don't think this has been said enough, that I think what has happened at Leeds United is we're just not fit enough. And one thing that I find interesting about this whole fitness thing as well is that since Daniel Farke has come to the football club, we've actually had a really, really good injury record compared to Bielsa. We've basically had no muscle injuries at all. And we've had a really good injury record. And we've actually allowed players that normally would get injured all the time. I look at a Manor Solomon, I look at a Sam Byram, I look at a few other players who we've actually managed to keep fit, and you'd say that's a real positive. But are we keeping these players fit because we're not training them hard enough? And actually other clubs, they'd be training them harder, and that's why they were getting injured beforehand. Because one thing we saw under Bielsa, which was the complete reverse of Daniel Farke, is we got a lot of injuries because we know he was absolutely belting them in training, and he was making them run and run and run, and therefore we're picking up loads and loads of muscle injuries. And I just think now, keeping players fit is fantastic and that's important. But I think it's quite clearly obvious, in my opinion, that we're just not training them as hard, which is why we're not getting as many injuries, which is why actually we can sign players that are quote unquote injury prone because they're not going to get injured at Leeds because we don't train them as hard as other clubs. Now, as I said, there's good things and bad things. We don't want our players getting injured, but in the same respect, are we doing that and now limiting our fitness levels, which is obviously not a good thing. So I think there are two things. But one thing's got to be said. Leeds United, if Leeds United carry on with that with that second half, I keep calling it away, that second half statistic, and we keep with this going, we will get relegated. That is that bad. That is absolutely horrendous. I mean, we've actually lost every single second half in all of the last 5 games. Every single one. And since in the last 11 games of the season, we haven't won one away from home performance. Not even one. That is an absolute tragedy for the ownership. And for me, and I tweeted this out today. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, I think it's Scott O'Worrell. I think it is anyway. But you can follow that. And I tweeted at Baron Cross, at Isaac Johnson, obviously of Leeds Live, and who's in the one I did, and Graham Smith as well, of course, of the YEP. And I said, please, can this be a question to Daniel Farke in the press conference? Because I think Leeds United fans deserve to know, and Daniel Farke deserves to get the question of what is going on in the second half, because this is that bad. And I don't see questions like that enough asked. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, go and follow me. Or you don't have to follow me, but just get them involved, at them in the comments or whatever, because we need that comment in the press conference and saying, what is going on here? Why is this not being asked? And why on earth is the second half so bad? Because it just is not on. Danny says, smash a like and subscribe, please. Thank you very much, Danny. And he also says, he's always done subs in the 70th minute, every single team he's been at. Yeah, I've seen this before. I think Mönchengladbach fans have said similar. SLY2 says Farke out, bringing Jurgen Klinsmann to up the fitness. Potentially, mate. Danny also says, we're getting relegated anyway, not just because Farke not just because Farke here, no matter who comes in. Potentially. Not just that, ask him why all the subs are bad. Yeah, well, exactly, but I think that's part of it. I think that's what you almost want to get from the question. What is going on? Because it looks to me like people are doing tweaks at half-time and we're not doing tweaks. What is causing these second-half performances? I think it's got to be asked. Ollie says, evening, to get on that point, none of the reporters will challenge him on the second-half stat. They've got more chance of asking him what he had for breakfast and what he watches on Corrie. I do find this, I must admit, and I know... look, you've got to be respectful in press conferences. There's a reason why they don't let anyone in press conferences and they only let journalists, because you've got to ask stuff in a certain way. Of course you have. But I don't think it's an inappropriate question to ask him. We have lost the second half performances 14-2 on aggregate. We haven't won a second half since the start of the season. What is going on in these second halves, Daniel? And are you going to be able to fix this? And what is the fix to fix this? Because the Leeds United fans are worried that we're going to get relegated with a second half with second half statistics like that. I think that's a fair question. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I would like it. Doesn't have to be me that you post, but just tweet. Even if you want to do it yourselves, tweet at Graham, Brian, Adam Pope, whoever you want to tweet at. Because we need questions like this asked in press conferences. These are the questions, in my opinion, that the fan base wants to know. We don't want to know, and we don't want to listen to Daniel Farke talk up Pep Guardiola like he's going to do this weekend. Oh, Man City are really good. What do you think of Man City? Oh, they're a really good team. Pep's a fantastic coach. We know all this. I've no interest. Don't care. We get it every single press conference. Don't want to hear about emotional fans. Don't care. We've heard it every single time. Ask the hard-hitting questions. Ask questions like this. That would be fantastic. So if they could do that, that would be brilliant. The journalists get told what they can and can't ask. I'm not sure that's entirely true, Danny, actually. I think there is to an extent, but I don't think that's entirely true. Neil says, after Sunday's game, I was saying give Farke till the City game. If we get hammered, then it would be time for him to go. Saying that the next manager's still got Chelsea and Liverpool, so I would wait until January. See, that I think you're in the minority there, Neil. I must admit, Neil, my honest feeling with the Farke situation at the moment is I agree with you. I would give him City because I don't think he's lost the play. I don't think he's lost the players. I think the players are still quite clearly playing for Daniel Farke at this moment in time. And the other thing that I'd mentioned with it as well, Neil, is that as I said, he outlost the players. And I don't want to bring in a new manager, like you said, for them games. I don't think they're particularly good games. However, I do think, on the contrary, I do think that with a new manager in and an erupting Ellen Road, we can get points at Chelsea at home and we can get points against Liverpool at home. Liverpool are really shaky at this moment in time. Chelsea are a flaky team. They're inconsistent. They can perform really well one week and they can stink it out another week. We could get points in them games. That could happen. And at this moment in time, I'm think my honest feeling is that you leave him for Man City, which is a game realistic we aren't going to get points in. And then them two home games, you have an absolutely booming atmosphere, brand new manager, remove this dark cloud that we were talking about the other day, and remove the dark. I've just seen a comment as well. I'm going to read out, but remove this dark cloud and go into them with massive positivity, and let's just fly at them and see if we can create an upset, like we saw when we played Chelsea. Liverpool are shaky at this moment in time. I watched them at the weekend, Liverpool, and they went 1-0. They were playing fantastically well for the first sort of 30 minutes of the game. Then they went 1-0 down from the Managerial goal, and they absolutely collapsed. And that's just at home. Away from home, I think it could be even away from home, it will be even worse for them. And Liverpool fans will say this themselves. So my opinion for that game is that try get yourself 1-0 up, see the Liverpool collapse and see if we can get some of the other line. And again, Chelsea are the sort of team that you could get a result against because they are quite flaky at times, Chelsea, and they do sort of like give you a chance. Like they lost at home to Sunderland this year, they've lost at home to Brighton, another playing away, but it's the same sort of respect. SLY, which is why I got a bit confused. I said, seen the Japan national team training videos. They have Tanaka running the whole time. They know the fitness levels of Leeds are not good. I think there's something in that, mate. I don't know anything about that, I must admit. But I think there's something in the fact that we are not as fit as the rest of the Premier League. And as I said, I think that's why we take on injured players. Because we know Daniel Farke is not as vigorous in his training. And therefore, we manage to not get players injured and get muscle injuries because they're not training as hard. Ollie says, my prediction is 7-0 loss at City. He's gone and Rodgers is in by Monday morning. I don't think that's a bad prediction, mate. I really don't. I could see that. I could see that a lot. I really could. I think there's every chance, as I said yesterday. As I said, I don't want to talk too much about Farke because I think we've done it to death. But I think there's a genuine possibility that they've already sort of decided to sack him as such, but they're just waiting for the right time for the new manager, and they've almost just let him have this Man City game because what's the point? Like, there's no point changing before the Man City game. And 7-0, I mean, I won't be that surprised at that. Neil says, I don't want Rodgers, no chance. I agree, I don't want Rodgers. We talked about it a bit yesterday, Neil. So yeah, I agree with you. Jack says, evening, Scott. Evening to you too, Jack. Nice to see you in the chat. Anyway, that is the absolutely abhorrent second half statistic. Do you think because we had more away games than home, because we look better at home? Do you think because we had more away games than home, because we look better at home? I think we are better at home, mate, if that's what you're trying to say. 100%. And as I said, with the Chelsea and Liverpool game, if we were playing Chelsea and Liverpool away, and we were playing them at Stamford Bridge and Anfield, they're almost like, we're not going to win in them games, in my personal opinion. But at home, I think we can give most teams a game. I think Arsenal are probably the only one, and maybe Man City, that I don't think we can get anything at home against. I think I'd be very surprised. Everybody else at home, I think we can get a result against. I'm not saying we will, but I think we can. I think if Leeds United play their best, Liverpool could drop to a poor performance and we could beat them. He should have gone yesterday morning. I think they're just delaying the inevitable now, says Ollie. I disagree, actually, Ollie. I think that they should give him the City game just because I just don't want to throw a new manager in for that particular game. I just think it's such a bad one. Bringing Joachim Low and Klinsmann assistant, golden age of Germany. I don't know. I think Joachim Low's done international football for so many years now, mate, and it's such a different game to club football, and he's been in it for so long. I'm not 100% on that. I know. That obviously they won the World Cup, didn't they? When Mario Götze scored with them two as coach and assistant, I believe. Neil says Carlos Corberán. Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on him either, mate, to be honest with you. I think we can do better, truthfully. Anyway, let's talk a bit about the relegation battle, shall we? Because I think there's been quite a few changes this weekend. And it's changes, I must admit, that I probably expected to happen. And obviously, Leeds United have now dropped into the bottom three. As you can see there, we are now 18th. Admittedly, it's only on goal difference. Like, if we'd have nicked a point, or if they'd have been beaten by Bournemouth, which, let's be honest, they should have been. If you saw the statistics, they got absolutely hammered West Ham. We still wouldn't be in the bottom three, but we are now in the bottom three. But I think what we're seeing with the Premier League, in my personal opinion, at this moment in time, is the league is starting to take shape, I believe, at the bottom end anyway. Like, I never thought Nottingham Forest were going to get relegated. They just finished in Europe last season, getting 7th in the division. Then, was it 7th or 8th? I think it was 7th. Then they spent another 200 million, I thought, on decent players for the most part. Yes, they had a shaky season. Yes, they brought in Ange, which was a bit of a disaster. Yes, there was a bit of a mess with Nuno, but I think now they're settled, and I think you're going to see them push up the table and might even finish in the top half. I think Nottingham Forest, genuinely. So I know they're not out of it in terms of points tally yet, but I think we're seeing what I expected to see from Nottingham Forest. One thing that I think is interesting at this moment in time, though, and one thing I do want to bring up that not actually on this list, is Sunderland, because I've seen a lot of Sunderland fans talking this week, and for anyone that doesn't know, they lost 1-0 to Fulham at the weekend, which was probably a poor result for us in terms of where Fulham are in the league. One thing I do want to say about that particular game, though, is that Sunderland were terrible. They were absolutely terrible, and they weren't much better when they in the draw against Everton. They had against Everton at home either. They were obviously pretty good in the Arsenal game, and they managed to get a draw there, which was a fantastic result. But I was listening to a few Sunderland fans talk at the weekend. They're not out of it, in my opinion. The only thing with Sunderland that's my worry is that they're 8 points clear, and it's like they've got a squad for me that could go down. But they're so far ahead, and we've got so much catching up to do. Like, how long is it going to take for Leeds United to win another 8 points? For me, it's probably going to be months before we get 8 more points. So if it's going to be months before we get 8 more points, they're going to have to continuously lose for months now without actually picking up points. And that's my main worry. But I think it was interesting that Sunderland fans were saying, look, we were awful at Fulham. We weren't that particularly good against Everton either. And are they starting to get dragged into it? And I think they are. They're not going to finish in the top 4, top 6 like people thought, and people were saying. That ain't going to happen. I think they're a team that it's unfortunate they picked up like the Chelsea result and a few other results, because had they dropped a few more points, I think it could have got quite interesting with them. But they're just a bit ahead. But what I wanted to get to, in truth, regarding this whole relegation battle and where we're at with it, is that I think right now the 3 worst teams are the 3 worst teams in terms of the tally of the table. I think Leeds, Burnley and Wolves are the 3 worst teams in this division. And I think what the situation, in my opinion, is at this moment in time is Leeds are going down. I think that's where we're at. I think every single person, if you look at sort of neutral fans that talk about this as well, and obviously they don't know as much about Leeds as we do, but I think it's quite obvious right now that they're the 3 worst teams, and we're one of them. And I think we've got to now change that. So West Ham were one of the worst teams in the league. They changed it to Nuno. And I'm not saying change your manager, but something's got to change, because in current climate, we're going down. So something has to change. And that is sort of where I'm at with this moment. They're like, for me, Wolves will get relegated. I think they're way too far adrift at this moment, and they're still losing as well. Rob Edwards doesn't look like he's made the sort of change to the Wolves that maybe we expected he would. Burnley for me are terrible. I think they're going down as well. West Ham are an interesting one. Because Sly's just put in the chat, we're better than West Ham. And what is interesting about West Ham, of course, is that they actually played the weekend against Bournemouth away, and they got a 2-2 draw. But it was absolutely a joke of a performance in terms of the second half, especially. Like, we talk about how bad Leeds have been in the second half. That is one of the worst second half performances on a statistical basis I think we've seen all season. West Ham had 1 shot in the second half. I think Bournemouth had 25, but not just 25 shots. They actually created something like a 3.5 XG. So loads of fantastic chances. And I watched a lot of them as they were coming through as well. And they were missing sitters, Bournemouth, and they should have won about 5-0 in that second half, and they obviously should have won the game in the end. But they ended up getting back and getting a draw. And I still look at West Ham, I agree, as someone that could go down. I think they're still in the fight. They're different to Forest. Forest will definitely not get relegated. They'll probably finish maybe even top half. For me, as I said, West Ham are a different story. I think West Ham are still vulnerable. I still thought the performance they put in against us was absolutely horrendous, even though they got better in the second half. But we know, as we talked about, Leeds get worse in the second halves. So I think they're still in with the fight. And the other thing is, I know we've got really poor games, but a lot of these teams right now, if you look around the fixtures, have also got really poor games. I think West Ham have got Liverpool next, who obviously are in a bad form, but we're not saying that Liverpool's an easy game. So we can't really say it's an easy game for them either. I think Fulham have got a next 3 games are absolutely awful as well, coming up. So a lot of teams have bad fixtures around us, and we know Burnley and Wolves are just terrible and probably carry on losing anyway. And I think Wolves actually have got some poor fixtures coming up as well. So what I'm saying is we just got to keep plugging away and keep ourselves within the fight while we get through these bad fixtures, and then hope we can come out of it into the better fixtures in the second half of the season and really push on. Because one thing that the situation is, and it will continue to be with this relegation battle, and something that Daniel Farke mentioned at the weekend, which is right on, and we've mentioned on this channel as well, this is that Leeds have still got to play a lot of these teams at home. We've still got to play Wolves at home. We've still got to play Burnley at home. We've still got to play Fulham at home. We've still got to play Brentford at home. We've still got to play Forest at home. There is a lot of fixtures there that Leeds United can pick up points in. We've still got to play Sunderland at home as well. And there's definitely winnable games. And we're probably going to need to win 7 more and get maybe, how many draws have we got? 2 draws, I think we've got. So we're probably going to need 8 draws, 7 more wins, something like that. That's 40 points. And I think the points are still there to be won. So I don't think this is out of it at the moment in time. I just think we've got to accept where we are, accept we're probably for me, the 3rd worst team in the division at this moment. And we've got to do something now to elevate ourselves out of this position, is what I'm going with. But as I said, the teams, the results at the weekend weren't the worst thing. Like, Burnley didn't win against Chelsea. Wolves lost again, which is nice, because that could have been the start of a Rob Edwards revitalisation. That hasn't happened, so they still look like in a bad place. And as I said, West Ham threw away 2-0 lead, which will really, really sort of hurt them as well. Let's get into some of y'all guys' comments anyway. Do you think Ampadu should be dropped? I don't, mate. I thought it was really, really good at the weekend. I thought it was fantastic at the weekend, actually. I thought it was probably 2nd best performance of the season, probably behind the Everton performance in the first week. Ollie and Saul says we should wait for Madrid to sack Alonso. Yeah, it would be nice. The one that's interesting actually about the sackings is I'd love Thomas Frank, and he's probably going to come too late, the Thomas Frank sacking, if it does come. But Thomas Frank will be a perfect appointment for Leeds United. Yes, it's not working at Spurs, but they're trying a different thing. We're trying to sort of, they want a philosophy and a way of playing that works every single week, works against the top teams, works every week. We want a manager who's going to adapt game by game to get the best results with the team that we've got. Thomas Frank is perfect for that. He showed that at Brentford for year on year. So even though it's not working at Spurs, he'd be brilliant for Leeds. So if they could sack him tomorrow, let's do it and let's bring him in, because that would be fantastic. But yeah, realistically, that's not going to happen. But it'd be nice to look out for. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention as well is that, which I think we've mentioned, and this is a bit more about Farke, but it's not. It's more about the team as a total, really. And this is why I've left this to the end. One thing that people are not mentioning is, which I think is concerning and probably feeds into the Daniel Farke out movement. It almost sounds like I'm Daniel Farke out at this moment, the way I'm talking, is that I'm worried that it's not going to get any better, is it? Because no one's injured at the moment at the Leeds team. Nobody's injured. It's not like we've got players to come back. Nobody's injured. Whereas now, coming into it, we're actually looking at it going, Ampadu's on 4 yellow cards now, so 1 more yellow, he's missing a game. Stach's out with a concussion injury, so he can't play. So we are going to start to go through a time, and especially over January period, everybody knows this. There's so many games all of a sudden, and you end up picking loads of injuries up all of a sudden in the January window. It happens every single season, without fail. So many games, naturally injuries form. And I think even playing the cold at times can sometimes do that to the body on a sort of physical basis as well. It can get you injured. Especially when I think you stretch your legs immediately, it can cause injury. So we are going to see more injuries picking up. And I think, the Daniel Farke out brigade will probably jump on this completely, and rightly so, that, well, all right, we're playing tricky teams maybe at this moment in time, but we're actually playing them with our best squad. As I said, we went into the Villa game at the weekend, which is a game I think we should have been picking up points in. And we had a full fit squad. We had a full fit squad. Nobody was injured. And now we've got Stach injured. As I said, Ampadu's on 4 yellows, and I think he's got to survive 7 games now without getting yellow cards, not miss one. So he's going to get booked, and he's going to miss a game. So it's only going to get harder, which is what I'm slightly worried about, to be honest. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up at the end of the show, because it's like, yeah, it's slightly worrying. If he starts Aronson on Saturday, he should be sacked before kick-off. He will definitely start Aronson away at City, mate, 100%, because his logic is that Aronson's amazing off the ball. We're going to have to do a load of off-the-ball work. He's going to be sacked. In your case, he will be sacked before kick-off, Ollie, because that's going to happen. Scooby says, how do you think Nemecha played? And next game, would you start him or who and why, please? The Man City game is a tricky one, isn't it, mate? Because for me, we're not going to get... If Nemecha or Calvert-Lewin, whoever plays, gets one chance against Man City to score a goal, we've probably done quite well. They're probably not going to get a chance. So then you're picking him on something else. And I still do actually probably believe that Calvert-Lewin's off-the-ball work is probably marginally better than Nemecha. Although I think if a chance was to fall to someone, because of the form Nemecha's on at this one time, not that he's on unbelievable form, but he scored 2 in 2. So his confidence isn't on the floor like I think it probably is with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So it's a tricky one. I don't really think it matters too much, mate. I think going forward, I think you pick the player that's in form, and I think you pick Nemecha. But I think the City one's slightly different because it's just such a strange complexion in terms of how the game's going to play out. We're probably going to end the game with about 30% of the ball. We're probably going to have about 5 shots all game. Probably a lot of them pot shots if we do have 5 shots. So it's a bit of a different scenario to long term. But long term, I think Nemecha at this moment in time has to be the one that starts. Like if you were playing Burnley at home at the weekend, I'd be starting Nemecha 100%. So I guess that answers your question in 2 different ways. We need to play 3 at the back. Bornau to cover on Goodmanson's side when he goes up. Yeah, it could be a decent way of playing, mate. And I think when you're looking at new managers, Daniel Farke's not going to change. I don't think he's going to go 5 back. I think he has in his past. But I remember him going 5 back under Daniel Farke away at Chelsea when he's in his Norwich time. And they lost that game 7-0. So, you know, it's not. I don't think it's the be-all and end-all not to sort of, yeah, throw Beale's name in there, I guess. Sly says a 3-5-2. I just don't like that formation because, and I've talked about this enough times, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but you're basically left exposed with their fullback. Who marks the fullbacks? Because your midfielders can't get out to them, and you basically have their fullbacks having the freedom of the park. And when they've got Nunez and they've got, who's the other lad on the other side? Nico O'Reilly. Yeah, I mean, City have got a fantastic all over the place, in fairness, so it probably doesn't make too much difference, but I'm not 100% with that, I must admit. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the show there, people. So I hope you've enjoyed it, as always. Tomorrow, we're back with some more Leeds United news. Thursday will obviously be the preview. Friday as well, we'll go back to the 8 p.m. show, which should be nice, because there's no real games that anyone's probably going to care about on a Friday. I think there's maybe a championship game, but truthfully, people are not going to care. But tomorrow, obviously, because I think, is it Liverpool play tomorrow? Someone decent? Anyway, there's some decent Champions League games coming up. There's obviously Chelsea play Barca tonight, and I think there's another game. So tomorrow will be another 7 p.m. show, but then Thursday will be a preview, so that's slightly different, and then obviously Friday will be back at 8 p.m. My team for Saturday is 5-4-1. Darlow, Bogle, Rodon, Biol, Strout, Goodmanson, James, Ampadu, Tanaka, Okafor, Nemecha. Fair enough, mate. The only issue there, mate, is you are playing two in midfield. You're playing Ampadu and Tanaka up against their three midfielders, which does slightly concern me because we're going to be outnumbered in midfield a lot. So you're going to have to make sure that Okafor and James get really narrow to help that out. Almost like a 2-1 or a 5-2. Okay. Mark says, no doubt James is better than Aronson. However, I remember not too long ago, many didn't want James anywhere near the first 11. It just shows how short we are. No, exactly. The thing is, Mark, is that, I've said this a few times on the channel, Aronson is garbage and should be dropped. And it's not a criticism of Aronson. He's just not good enough. He tries hard. He's just not good enough. In the same way, if I played, I'd tried hard and I'm not good enough. But the thing is with Aronson is that he should be dropped, but that doesn't mean that James and Nonto are our answers and we're going to be fantastic if they come in the team. They're not the answers either, in my opinion. I'm not convinced either of them two are good enough, and we should have bought someone in January, but bought some in the summer, the likes of Harry Wilson, etc., to play on the right-hand side because we don't have good enough options on the right-hand side. But we didn't do that. So you've got to look at what we've got at this moment in time, and Dan James is a better option, even though he isn't the answer, than of course, Brennan Aronson. Brenaldinho is better than James. Not convinced he is, Sly. But on that note, we will. I'll see you all later, everybody. And remember, tomorrow 7 p.m. and then it's the preview, and then we're back to 8 p.m. on the Friday. Anyway, thanks all for watching, everybody, and I will